And now you have like it's like an international underground war too. You have a lot of fentanyl being produced in China that finds its way into Mexico, that then finds its way somehow cut into the product, that then gets its way across the border, and then people are snorting it. And now it's also just sold straight as too, and people are addicted to it and buy it.
And they have their thing of a narco or whatever.
Narcan, yeah.
And they know that they're going to go out that night, and they know that they're going to go and overdo it and just relive themselves. Now, you know, fentanyl is 100 times more powerful. They put it in there, so they have to put less hair, and they make, and it's cheaper.
It's cheaper, yeah.
But it's just gotten totally out of control. That's why I think it comes a point that you have to start controlling this because it's out there.
You ever see Tommy G's YouTube channel, the documentarian?
No.
He's a friend of mine. He was just on the show, but he just put out I think it was like a 30-minute doc on. Yeah. I was just, you know, I've watched this stuff before, but now also seeing someone I know go in and go to these places and investigate it and do it, it hit home a little more for me. I'd highly recommend that for people, but you know, it's just such a growing problem. And to your point, when you talk about legalization, it's a very messy proposition, of course, because it's like, you know, pulling off a Band-Aid very fast, and way worse than a Band-Aid very fast, like tape all over your skin. But you wonder if it might actually, if something like that would decrease the ability for people to abuse fentanyl or something. Like, would I rather see it? I don't want people abusing drugs at all, but are there other drugs I'd rather see them abuse than that? Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a question to ask.
It's all about our system, education. It's, you know, I mean, drugs, alcohol, you know, it's just a matter of getting people educated so that nobody desires. But that's a hard, I mean, it's impossible. Yeah. It's impossible.
It's very hard.
What can I tell you? And it's, to legalize this, forget it. It's politically, no politician wants to get involved in saying that kind of shit.
That's the problem.
It's just, and it's a very nasty world. And every day it's getting nastier. I mean, it was nasty when I was in it. It's just getting nastier, though. I do believe that this whole cocaine cartel, criminal enterprise, drug world is getting nastier by the day.
Do you still talk with people in that world a lot who are actively in it?
No. I really don't.
But you talk with guys who used to be in it?
Yeah, that used to be in it, yes. And let me tell you, it's not because I was in it. No. The fact is that when all this started, it started with marijuana.
Yeah.
And that was very mellow.
Yeah, easy.
And then compared to what's happening now, even the cocaine days were mellower.
Agreed.
Even though you had the cocaine cowboys in Miami, that was taken care of really quick. But now it's just gotten so nasty, nastier all across the board. I mean, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. What's the solution? I don't know. Because legalization, it's possible, but it's very, very difficult.
Absolutely.
To pull this out, it's just too many vested interests that I don't even want to get into that. Yeah. So that's why this ball of wax is just getting bigger, and the synergy is getting bigger, and it's just getting nastier, and it's just, I truly believe it's getting worse and worse and worse. When it started, it was pot. People thought that was bad. Look at the shit that's going on now.
Yeah, it's cultural, though, too. I mean, I grew up, my best friend since I was 4 years old is Greek, and he's a dual citizen, right? So he would live in Greece in the summers. There's no drinking age there. So there was no, those kids, there was no allure of the, oh, I got to drink because that's forbidden. It was just like, oh, yeah, that's there.
Different,
so they did,
cultural.
And they didn't abuse it.
Exactly.
But now think about it. If you went to change that overnight, like in America, you'd have an 18, 20-year adjustment period where people would still look at it that way and abuse the fuck out of it. You know what I mean? It's like you're stuck on the train, so you can't really get off the train, even if it's the move to make, because the cost of getting off it is, in this case, maybe eliminating a drinking age or something, would be so astronomically high that no one wants to do it.
It's we'd rather continue down this crooked road than to fix the road. It's just I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. And I tell you, cocaine, you buy up all the cocaine. It's not like it just grows on. It does grow on trees, but there's a limited supply.
Yeah.
You know, you can actually economically control it by buying the limited supply. But then you have so many additional problems that come along with that. It's crazy.
Yeah. And they'll just find something else too. Like when you talk about your career though, with your kids, do you a lot? Like is that a conversation? Do you talk about your past with them and what do they think about it, if so?
You know, I do. It is what it is. They don't say it was right. They just accept it, and now they are happy that I've been able to change my lifestyle. And they are very grateful to the U.S. government for pulling me out, because I would have never done it on my own. I would have died. You know, I would have probably lived two more years. I probably would have lasted 3 years the way I was going. Either gotten killed or had a heart attack. So, yeah, my kids don't approve of what I did. They know it's real. They accept it, and they said that they're very proud that I quit and I never went back. And you know, I work at what I do now, and I try to be as good as a parent as possible. But that I had a bad, a bad choice of careers early in life that they do. It was a mistake. And, you know, I didn't see them for years because of this. So.
Yeah, we kind of left off there, like when you got caught and sent back to the U.S. We left off like when you were about to get on the plane to do it. But you get flown back to Miami, is that right?
Yes, Fort Lauderdale International.
Okay. You get off, the media's there, take pictures of you and everything, and you at this point think they got you on 25 tons of cocaine on a deal. You don't know how it works, as you said, but you're assuming you're looking at maybe life in prison. What happened next, and how soon did you turn on to Team America here?
Well, I didn't really know how it worked, and I told my first attorney, listen, I'll do 10 years. I'll do 10 years solid, okay? Just I need to keep some of the money, but I'll do a solid 10 years. And they look at me like saying, do a solid 10 years and keep some of the money. I mean, that won't even happen if you cooperate. You're going to do life. If you don't cooperate, you're going to do life. Number one, they've got the merchandise. This is not a conspiracy case. There's 25 tons of cocaine and there's 4,600 kilos from the Keys. Plus, there's 50 guys in the system that are willing to testify against you. So, you know, you don't have a chance. If you go to trial, you are going to get reamed with life, 30 years, 33 years. You're going to get clobbered because you have 2 indictments. You're dead. So that's when I started saying, okay, so what's the deal? Thank God a lot of my stuff was historical because I had been involved for so long. And Operation Journey, that was not a result of my cooperation. That was that they were infiltrated, and Operation Journey, you know, that wasn't my fault. I was a victim of Operation Journey. You know, I wasn't the one that was the guy who infiltrated the organization and took it down. So a lot of my information was historical because a lot of years had gone by. But it was a no-brainer. And also it happened at a time. This is a Colombian thing. The business is basically has always been run by Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1998, the head of the Colombian cartels met with the DEA in Panama, and that's also on Google, Baruch Vega. And they met in Panama, and they started to talk about cooperation and doing less time and giving themselves up.
Mm.
So since 1998, there started to be an air of cooperation between the cartels and the DEA.
Mm.
So when I got caught in the year 2000, cooperation was already part of the Colombian way of doing things.
So
we're not part of any yakuza or nothing. We're here to make money, and you can't make money while you're sitting in jail for 30 years. So cooperation is part of the business model. Let's say.
What came first, though? When we were talking at dinner last night, you mentioned there was like a time where they sent in like 25 agency guys from they didn't even give ID on what they were from. They were from all the spy agencies and whatever. Does that happen after you've already agreed to do a deal, or is that a part of the contingent to see if they're going to do a deal?
No, that's after you sign your proffer agreement.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they come in. The thing is that, we were taking this to the next level. Like, I was thinking of doing these fast boats to replace the freighters. But after the fast boats, I was already thinking, why the fucking fast boats? Why cross the Atlantic? Why don't we start growing this shit in Africa? And I'm serious. We had plans to start buying land and growing this in Africa. Yeah. Can you imagine the cluster dealing with African warlords and arming them with this powerful money-making? This would have been a major cluster. You know what?
Well, they do that like crazy today, right? There is an enormous trafficking ring that starts with Hezbollah, the group funded by Iran, the terror group, and they run, it's like a used car thing. They run used cars through the United States, launder them through South America, I think it's Mexico, but I'll just say South America in general, and send it through West Africa. And they like pack cocaine into these used cars and shit, and that's what funds Hezbollah. And they're working with the West African countries right there.
Well, I know that West African countries, landing plane loads of cocaine in Guinea-Bissau. And that's been a route that's been used for years. Even when I was around, there was plane loads being sent to West Africa.
Mm.
But we were planning on growing it there to avoid the plane loads. Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So even the French got really scared when we started to say that, that we were planning to grow it there, and everybody came down. The Brits, the French.
They were all in the room there.
Yeah.
Whoa. Now, the deal you made, was it specifically for like, I'm going to get 5 years in prison or something like that?
No, I got 11. And then, you do 85% of your time. Then.
But you only did like 5, right?
Yeah, because the rest is a Rule 35 that you provide additional cooperation after sentencing, and you get a reduction.
Okay, that's what. Yeah. So you just missed my friend Matt Cox at Coleman. He was there. When did he go into Leslie? Like 07, something like that. 06, 07?
Yeah.
I want to say. So you got out in 2005, but he was the same thing. Like he went in there, he was sentenced to like 26. He ended up doing 13 because he helped the government on stuff.
Also, no violence helps.
Yeah.
If I would have had some violence, it would have been a different story.
For sure. So you get in there, and what was that when you're talking with all these agencies, you're letting them know about the Africa plan? What other kinds of things did you talk about with them?
Just in general, how everything's done. They're very interested in, how the shipping, how you recruit, in the countries, the whole logistics of the operation, how the boats are bought, the funneling of the money, the laundering of the money, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. And then you end up going to Coleman for 5. Were you in there with anyone cool? Were you friends with anyone we would know?
Crazies. Yeah, we had a great, Coleman, I mean, it's all about time. You know, a guy that's doing 27 years is not in the same frame of mind as a guy that's doing 5.
Right.
So you can't mix them up, because the guy that's doing 27, you know, puts his head on his pillow every night. 27 is a hair. That's why my first year at the building, at the federal building, was a tough one, because I was still looking at 30 years, 30 years, 30 years. You know, it takes a year for you to start ironing it all out. And then you get sent away to prison. So you get sent away to prison based on your level of violence and how much time you have. You can't put a guy that's going to do 3 years with a guy that's doing 30, or a violent guy. So, but in Coleman, it was, you know, federal time. I think anybody can do. Federal time is good time. Okay,
it's good time.
Yeah, it's.
That's a new one.
I mean, it's not great to go to jail, but I mean, I exercised. I respected everybody. I didn't, disrespect anybody. There's a code of respect. I kept busy playing the drums. I'm gonna take a quick.
Oh yeah. Let's stop for 1 sec for a quick break. All right, we're back. What I wanted to ask though is, right when we were going to break, is, were you worried about reprisal though from anyone connected to the cartels or something because you had cooperated on your sentence? I know you had mentioned that in Colombia there had been a thing between the DEA and the Colombians, that this was starting to become a thing, but I got to still think there's a lot of people who are inside it who haven't cooperated, who would be pissed that, you know, someone like turned on some other people within the operation.
Well, my case, once again, it was a little different. I had my family living in Mexico. And when I realized that to do 10 years and to come out of this half-assed good, I mean, in a good way, I was going to have to cooperate. I had my wife go to Colombia and talk to some of my partners that were still out there. Yeah, she's got some balls on her.
Yeah, I'll say. Christ.
So she went to Colombia.
Ex-wife at this point.
My ex-wife. I'm telling you, if there's a hero in this story, it's her. This is just one more time that she just went to bat full on. Nobody does this. She went to Colombia and she spoke to a few of my associates that I've mentioned and some that I haven't. And she said, look, he's been caught. We all know that. And he's probably looking at 30 years. Now, he has an option to cooperate, but he wants me to come down here and he wants to be very, open about this. If he has to do 30 years because I'm going to get killed and the kids are going to get killed and this is going to be a major clusterfuck, he's going to call it quits and he'll do his 30 years. He'll take his lick because that's what it is. Obviously, he can't cooperate if something's going to happen to his family. They told her, listen, he's worked with us for years and years and years. We've all made a lot of money. We're all going down the same path. This is over. There's nothing new. This shit is over. I mean, if we don't get, I mean, we're probably going to end up in the same place he's going to end up. This is
how magnanimous.
I mean, and they did. They spoke to her and they said, let him do what he needs to do to get out.
And who was it specifically in Colombia she was talking to again?
Well, she talked to Mickey. She talked to Raz. She spoke to Papito. And who else was it? One of them didn't show up. Who was it that was on there? One of them. But she spoke to 3 of the major persons I was working with. And they told her that for me to do whatever I needed to do, because, we all have to deal with this situation on our own ways, that there's no reprisal. There's no, nobody's going to go after her. She lived in Mexico. She didn't live in the U.S. So she didn't have a visa. They had taken her visa away. Well, they took, yeah. And so I I got the okay from that angle because I was very worried. I didn't know what to do. I mean, how the hell am I going to embark on this crazy situation of debriefing with these people and then having a major problem with my family?
Right.
And then I asked them, is there any way, I was owed about $7 million. And is there any way you can get some of that? No, the money part, forget about that. That's a big zero on that. Just have them do whatever he can to get out. We're each going to fight our own battles when it comes to the U.S. government because we each have a different situation. But whatever he has to do to, clean his deal, go ahead.
Did you, I'm trying to think, because you had family money too when your father died, right? So when they seized your assets, I would imagine they seized pretty much everything that was illegal, but you still had money, no?
You see, my mother lived in the same house on Key Biscayne. I could have taken my money and bought her a mansion. I could have added three new floors to her old house, but I didn't want any of that. Thinking ahead, I said, if I ever have a problem, they can't say that any of my money went into her properties or anything. So I never, thank God she never needed my money because she had her own. So I never mixed apples and oranges.
But you had money for your family then while you were gone, and you had money when you came out of prison. You just didn't have as much money because they took the illegal stuff.
When my dad passed away and I stayed in the sugar business a few more years, we liquidated all of my dad's holdings, and that went straight to my mom. I didn't need it. So I gave it all to her.
Okay.
I didn't need it. So she had her own money.
Is your mom still around today?
No, she passed away in 2017.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Was it 2017?
But point being, there was at least money in the family. Like you weren't left destitute by this.
By what happened to me?
Yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, they had money, but I also had some of mine.
You still had some?
I was allowed to keep some of it.
Who were your agents? I want to deal with them if I ever get in trouble.
No. I mean, it's not like that. It's not like that. But, it's not like I go out and buy a Ferrari or anything. Right. But, my wife was allowed to keep her apartment and another property and this and that.
Okay. So something. And how quickly, because some of these guys like...
I had the best agents.
Yeah, you're like friends with them today.
I fell in good hands. That's very important, too. You can fall into the hands of some real idiots. And these were tough guys. Bob Harley and Eric Olbinski, you don't want to be on their bad side. They'll rip you apart. Prosecutor, the same. Pat Sullivan, he'll rip you a new one. But if you're respectful, if you're decent, if you do the right thing, and you're a gentleman about everything, and you're not a piece of shit, they'll treat you with respect, and it goes a long ways. Now, on top of that, they're nice people to begin with, because some agents just have a grudge against people, and they get into being law enforcement officers for the wrong reasons.
That's right.
So I was fortunate enough to fall into the hands of very normal, highly educated people. So,
and it sounds like you had pretty quickly after your arrest, you developed some sort of decent relationship with them. Is that fair to say?
Yes. And the most decent relationship is a truthful one. The worst thing you can do in any business is lie. You lie to Pablo, you're dead. You lie to U.S. law enforcement, they don't care. You can tell them I moved 500,000 kilos. That's fine. That's the truth. Don't lie to them.
Yeah.
Don't lie to them. Just like anybody, the people I used to work with, I lost the fucking load. There was a hurricane. The boat tipped over. All right. Well, we'd like to see a little goodwill money. But tell them the truth.
You imagine Pablo Escobar being like, all right, no problem. Thanks for being honest.
We lost loads. We lost loads. A I would not advise anybody to get into this business, but if you do, and if you lose a load, it's always good to come up with some good faith money. Goodwill goes a long ways. You know,
We don't condone cartel around here. Don't go
But,
do it. But
you know,
nonetheless.
always offer to help lighten the load. You know, I know you've been hurt. I've been hurt. Here's a little something to ease the pain. And then maybe they'll give you more credit.
Did you worry about where the product could be going and what it could be used for? Meaning, like I mentioned 20 minutes ago or whatever it was, the whole Hezbollah thing where they're using used cars and cocaine to basically fund like terror operations. Did you ever worry about some of the clientele on the other end using the product to then get to surreptitious groups did I say that correctly? Groups that are going to use it for the wrong reasons?
Yeah, the real unfriendlies. No. Maybe because I was so occupied as to what I was doing. I was always busy. I was always busy planning the next one, executing the one I was on. I was always so busy that all I know is that, you know, we handed it over in Spain or in New York or in Houston, and then they took it and they ran with it. I really did not think about, you know, are they going to give it to Hezbollah or Hamas or these guys or whoever? I didn't worry about it because it really didn't come into my universe. We were never approached by any terrorist groups for us to work for them. So I was never put in contact, or I was never put in that situation. For example, you know, was some of the product that we moved bought from the FARC? I know that some of it was, okay, because I know that all these cartels end up buying some product from FARC because the biggest supplier of cocaine is FARC, Fuerzas Armadas Revolucionarias de Colombia. But, you know, I had enough things on my plate to think about those things. And, you know, we never dealt with any terrorist groups. We never thought that our merchandise would end up in terrorist groups. We, you know, when we dealt here in the States, you know, basically it was all the hippies from Santa Cruz.
But obviously you were a high level guy, so when they were put into contact with you to be potential clientele, they were serious people. They were people with resources and pockets. Did you ever have somebody come to you who you turned down working with them because you're like, no, we're not doing this. Like, I don't trust this guy, or I think there's something off here?
No, not really, because most of our stuff was already structured. And, you know, for example, when we started working in Europe, yes, we did meet some Russians that were friends of the Greeks, and they'd come down to Greece, and, you know, they'd come down in their private planes with their ladies and everybody in mink coats and big diamond. I mean, these guys were ostentatious to the max.
Oh, yeah.
So they were Russians. Who am I to judge? And the Greeks, the Italians, and, you know, Americans. No, we had a very structured situation where we didn't really go out recruiting new clients. Or, you know, we were pretty structured, and we were very busy as to what we were already doing. So never did we have a situation where, you know, because we turned somebody down or we didn't want to work with them, a war broke out or anything.
Right.
You know, this is all pretty structured, you know, and well thought out.
You had mentioned in Operation Journey when you went down simultaneously around the world, a lot of people you were associated with went down. But like for your coffee and macadamia business of people who were there allegedly doing that, but were really helping you run this business, like some of your go-to guys in the logistics end of it, did they go down too, or did some of them kind of get
some
away?
of them didn't. Some of them, nothing happened.
And they just left the business?
Yeah.
Wow.
They left the business. Maybe one or two continued, but I've been out of touch.
So you don't talk with them at all?
No. Very, very far removed from that.
You did this for so long, so incognito, literally straight out of a movie, which is why finally, knock on wood here, we're getting a movie made. But, you know, you still did end up getting caught. But I think a lot about these stories when we see all these guys who have Wikipedia pages. And I think about all the guys who don't have Wikipedia pages.
Oh.
Who did things, who did insane shit at any level, whether it's a guy like you who's a nonviolent behind-the-scenes guy who makes it happen, or a really violent guy who they just never knew who he was, a Kaiser Soze, if you will, and who maybe in many cases didn't continue and left the business and are just living openly right now.
I know a few. And they just fell through the cracks. It's either no. Look, there's some people in Bogota. My problem was, we got so big. My business model was grow, 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 and that I believe is a wrong business model. I know some guys, or I don't know, but I know of some guys that have been working this business for the last 40, 45 years, and all they do is send 10 kilos a month to Europe. That's it. They don't do 20. They don't do 30. They don't do 50. But 10 kilos a month will make you $150,000 a month.
Great living.
So they've been doing this for 30 years, 40 years. And they're still there. I know people that moved hundreds of thousands of kilos. The government has known about them, but the statute of limitations have just not been there to be able to indict them. And they're living, you know, they've got 500, 600, $1 billion. Oh,
my God.
And they're untouchable. They're, you know, out there. The government knows they're out there, but there's nothing you can do.
They can't do anything.
No, and they worked it. And, you know, they fell through the cracks.
Were there mystery guys that you were always told about under some moniker that you never met, that you didn't know who they were or what their deal was? Like, you met some of the highest dudes there were, but were there some of these guys that it's like, oh, no one really knows who that is, or we can't talk about that?
No.
It's all straightforward.
I personally met everybody I worked with, and I worked directly with the owners of the merchandise. In my case, you know, I guess that was old school. Maybe now it's different, but in my case, you know, I met all these guys. It was a different time, you know. It's like, you know, Hollywood when you can actually meet the actors, not like now. Maybe it's artificial intelligence. Who knows who's the head of the cartel now? Maybe it's artificial intelligence.
Oh, boy.
I don't know, but things have changed a lot. For me, it was like it was yesterday, but I know for a fact that things have changed a lot. Just in Mexico. You know, Mexico was different before. It's gotten a lot rougher now.
Oh, yeah. Do you think a guy like you could exist today?
I'm sure guys like me exist today.
But in the same way? Nonviolent?
Yeah. Yeah. You could still, you know, there's a lot of value to somebody that provides a service and is not violent. As long as you provide the service and you're good at it. You know, that's the key. Provide the service and being good. If you're violent, nonviolent, that's secondary. I mean, my success was that, you know, my routes and my logistics were good, and, you know, my product made it to point Z.
Right.
You know, no matter how nice you are or how amicable you are, if you fucking lose load after load after load, you're not going to last very long. So you know, I'm very, very fortunate that I got caught, and fell in the right hands, that I did the right thing. And I know a lot of people that just get totally confused. They get arrested, and instead of, you got to put on your best game.
Mm-hmm.
This is when you're dealing with the U.S. government. I mean, that's probably the toughest deal you're ever going to make in your life. And people lose it.
Mm-hmm.
They go off on a religious tangent. Yeah, religion's great, but listen, concentrate on what you're doing here. You just, can't lose track of what you need to do. And they lose it. They go nuts. They have very bad support from their families. Their wives leave them. And then they go ape shit. Mm-hmm. And then they lose focus on, taking care of this serious mess they're in.
Right.
I was fortunate that I was able to focus and keep my head, be healthy, and I think I did good time.
And when you came out of prison, you got into a whole different business. What was it, Impact Windows or something?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, the girlfriend that gave me the party that I walked out on, her father was the innovator and the pioneer of windows in Miami. I mean, all those big buildings in Brickell that were done in 1980, he did them.
Wow.
So when I came out, everybody was talking impact windows, hurricane windows. So, in the 80s, everybody wanted cocaine. When I came out in the 2000s, everybody wanted impact windows. So it made sense. Give the people what they want. In the 80s, they wanted cocaine. Give them cocaine. In 2000, I came out and everything was impact windows. Miami was impact window crazy. So I hooked up with him and he said, yeah, come into business with me. We're going to do impact windows. And that's how it started.
And you opened up your own, you went into business with him, but then opened up your own company?
Yeah, I went into business with him, but then his wife came in and says, I'm going to sue you, I'm going to sue you, and I'm going to sue you. You I'm married to, and I'm going to sue you, but you have a non-compete clause with me, and I'm going to sue just because I want to sue you. You can't just come out of prison and take over. I have a non-compete. I said, you didn't tell me you had a non-compete with your wife. No, I do. I said, listen, we'll stay friends, but this is it for the business. And then I continued by myself. But we were at the lawyer's office, and we're sitting there signing all these papers. Oh, this is going to be great. Listen, I just didn't come off a banana boat. I have a non-compete, and you and that, and then she was going to sue everybody. She was even going to sue the attorney.
Oh my God.
Crazy lady. And so then I stayed in the business, and I built it up, I sold it, and then I came back, and now I moved into not the finished products end of the business, but the raw material end of the business.
Metals and stuff. But you also don't you have like a consulting firm that works with the government advising on?
Not so much anymore.
Not so much anymore, but you did.
Yeah, I did. When I sold the business the first time around, I had a non-compete clause, and I had to not do windows for 2 years. So I decided to go back and do a little consulting work. And
you went undercover, right?
Yes.
What was that like, and where were you going?
It comes natural. I mean, to me, that kind of stuff, I know it, so I feel comfortable. I'm in my own element.
Where'd they send you to do it?
I've been all over. I've been South America.
But mostly. You didn't. But weren't you like kind of known? Like, weren't people going to be on to that?
No, I mean, Jesus, 15 years, everybody changes. I mean, people forget, things change, and it was more than anything out of, the adrenaline rush. It's, and you're working with good people. If I would have felt out of place, or I wouldn't have done it. But, we had a good game plan. And
are you allowed to say what kind of stings it was?
No, I'd rather not.
Okay.
But put it this way, it's not the kind of thing that you build up, and it's nothing you can leave your kids. So I went back to my business, and I built that up, and it's something more, solid. And how are you going to leave your son a consulting business of that nature?
Right,
That's
right.
crazy.
It's not. It's
you know.
not.
So, and also, I felt that these guys helped me a lot. So there's nothing wrong with me helping them a bit.
Playing for the other side.
When I was on the black side, I was black. White. I was never gray. I never played both.
That's a good way to put it.
I was either in or I was out. All in or all out. I never, while I was in the business, I never, worked for the other guys or informed or nothing like that.
I got you. And what do you the metals business you talked about a couple times today? But like, what specifically are you doing there?
Well, basically, a lot of the the products that we sold as window products, finished products, they're all aluminum. So we sell aluminum to the extruding companies, and that make the windows. Or there's a lot of companies that we sell copper to. Copper for
where
copper
do you go
wiring.
Where do you go get
Well,
it?
that's sourced either in India, Middle East, Turkey, Africa, and it's sold to a lot of extruders in Mexico, Central America, some in the U.S. It's products that are sold mostly, to industrial use.
Do you leverage contacts that you may have come across in your old life for that at all? Or
No,
totally different?
No. That would be going
Not
backwards.
in a bad way. No, that's not what I mean.
No.
Like just people you came across or whatever who were connected to certain things that made for a legal business like this actually make sense. That's what I'm getting at. Not like anything illegal.
No, most of the people, that were in that business, I haven't seen in a very long time. And a lot of time has passed by.
Oh yeah.
No, all these people in the new metals business and all this, the new people that I met, with since I started in the windows and so on and so forth.
Got it. I had said we were going to put a pin in Amado, Carrillo, Fuentes, because that had come up earlier, and I didn't want to get you off on a tangent. But I think you were saying you had dealt with him as well. He was a major kingpin in Mexico. Is that where you were getting at?
No, I dealt with his lieutenant there in Mexico, and I have friends that work directly with Amado, but I never worked directly with him.
Okay.
No.
I
worked with the Arellanos.
Well, they were also big.
Yeah.
They were huge. You ever work with El Mayo or El Chapo?
Yes. Directly, I never met El Chapo, but some of the people I worked with in Colombia and under the same umbrella, the same company, let's say, we did send merchandise to Mexico. And back then, we were dealing with somebody that we called El Rápido, and that was El Chapo.
You called him why did you call him El Rápido?
Because back then, when you sent merchandise to Mexico, a lot of times it would take 30 days to cross. You would send it today, they would receive it, and they would cross the border and hand you the merchandise in L.A. 30 days later. That was normal, 30 days.
Why was it 30
days? And
days?
then suddenly, this guy, El Rápido, because he started using tunnels, was able to cross this merchandise in 2 days, 4 days. And then they called him El Rápido, and it turned out, that was Chapo. But when we worked with him, we referred to him as El Rápido.
When did he start using the tunnels? Like the early 90s?
Well, they used it even back in the late 80s and stuff like that to cross pot. But the big time, I remember that we saw it. We saw it. It was like the early 90s, yes, that the time periods shortened dramatically. That's why, you know, that's why they called them El Rápido, because, like I said, they used to take 30 days, and suddenly it started taking 3-4 days, and that's when they really grew fast. And the Chapo group was taking in most of the merchandise in Mexico, but the biggest in Mexico at the time was Amado Carrillo. Amado was very big. He used planes, very big.
That's what I was asking, because you had talked about bringing the planes in, and then after Rafa was already gone, you were doing that. So I would imagine.
I was working with somebody that they called El Ocho, that he was connected with Ociel Cárdenas, the Gulf Cartel, and I never dealt with Amado.
What was the, like, when El Chapo was getting in and out of prison, he did it like through the tunnel and whatever, and was on the run and all that. I think that was when people in America started to realize just how intertwined the cartels are with the political system in Mexico. Like, that's always been a thing, but maybe in our consciousness we started to realize that more. What I want to know is, when you were there, though, as a middleman, effectively, you spent how many years living in Mexico? Like 3 or 4, something like that?
3 or 4 years, but I've been going to Mexico for the last 20 years.
Okay. How much interaction did you have with politicians and cops to pay them off?
None.
None?
None. That was not my job. I had my Mexican connection. That was his job.
Oh, so they took care of all that for you?
Yes. No, I didn't go there.
Okay. Probably for the best.
Yeah. No. I didn't. If I didn't have to go there, I wouldn't go there.
What were the biggest differences between the Mexican cartel and the Colombian cartel?
Colombians are very organized. They were very structured. The biggest difference is just, attitude. For example, when I was in the biggest mistake you can make is being a Colombian and going to Mexico and trying to be a boss in Mexico. Mexico is for the Mexicans. Let the Mexicans run Mexico. And a lot of people have made that mistake. Colombians going to Mexico trying to tell the Mexicans what to do. They end up dead. So Mexicans have their style. Colombians, they're more business-minded, let's say, but the big money is in Mexico. And it's gotten to a point that, Colombians don't want to deal in the U.S. anymore. They've already been through that program. In the 80s, a lot of people got indicted, 90s. So right now, the Colombians are sending most of their product to Europe, to Asia, Australia, Japan, India, and they let the Mexicans handle the U.S. So let's say, Mexicans buy 10,000 kilos in Colombia. So the Colombians will sell them the 10,000 kilos. 5,000 will belong to the Mexicans, 5,000 to the Colombians. The Colombians sell their product in Mexico to the Mexicans. So the big distribution is done by Mexicans in the U.S. The Mexicans run the U.S. market.
And that's today.
Today.
Which makes sense. So, but what you're saying is Colombia is still very powerful.
Very powerful, of course.
And who's in power now? Because the cartels we've been talking about, Medellin, Cali, they're all long gone.
I really don't know, but it's a bunch of the style has changed. Now you could be in a restaurant with a totally unknown guy, young, old, whatever, and he runs a massive cocaine business and nobody even knows about it. They've learned a lot from all the experiences they've had over the years.
Wow.
Yeah, Mexico is more visible,
It's the Wild West out there.
Colombia is still, you know, they've changed their profile. So,
yeah, the Mexican cartels, that's all we ever hear about. That's part of it too. We're kind of biased because, like you said, they handle the U.S. and we have the border problem with drugs coming across and things like that. So we forget about some of these other ones. But that's interesting that Colombia is still kicking that much.
Colombia, yeah, it's sending most of their product is going to Europe. I mean, like I said, Mexicans are running the U.S. That U.S.-Mexico border is off the wall.
Yeah,
a lot.
It's crazy.
And the Colombians really don't want nothing to do with the U.S. They believe the U.S. is too proactive. Like they'll send merchandise to Holland, and you know Holland knows where it came from, probably knows who owns it, this and that. But Holland does not get proactive and go and indict the Colombians. Right. The U.S. does, even though you know it's done in Colombia. They don't want to deal with that. They don't want to deal with the U.S.
Fair enough. Well, what we had talked at the very beginning of our conversation about you and Jesse getting together and how that all happened, where you ended up writing this book. But what made you want to finally do this? Because it's not like you got out of prison and wrote the book. You wrote it years later, and you're a guy who, like we said, to this day doesn't even put his real address on his driver's license, and now he wrote a book and he's at least willing to come on a podcast. What changed?
I don't know. I started writing it and thinking about it when I was in jail, and I said, I'm going to do a book. And suddenly, I don't know, I bumped into Jesse, and what started out as something that maybe or maybe not, it started to become reality more and more every day. And suddenly, you know, one day Jesse had the book written, and it was written, and we spent 2.5 years talking on the phone, him in Australia, me in Miami, with the time difference.
That's wild.
But we worked on it, and it's something that happened. And there it is. It's just like the movie now. And yeah, you're right. This guy doesn't put his eye, but you know, he's out here doing a podcast show, and you know, weird. But I guess it's something that in the end, I always wanted to do it. I always, and the people that convinced me or told me that it was a good idea were the agents themselves, like Bob Harley. He told me, listen, I've interviewed 20 guys, and they all want to write a book. And the one thing they have in common is you. They all talk about Louis Navia. So their 5 minutes of your life, the one that should write the book is you.
Yeah.
So, and they a lot of them, most of them have always told me that they, you know, dealt with a lot of people, heard a lot of stories, but mine is definitely unique. So go ahead and write it.
Yeah, I hope everyone goes and gets it. And I mean, if you've listened to these two podcasts we just did today, I mean, my God, you have easily the most unique story from the cartels I've ever come across. And
it's a wild ride.
It is a wild ride. And like I said this at some point earlier, probably in the first podcast, but like the federal agents and stuff check a lot of this stuff out. I mean, not every single thing can be checked, but like the things you talk about in the places you really did do these deals. You really did know these people. Like, if we didn't have the backing of like the government being able to say, yeah, no, we did these cases and this is what he was doing, you wouldn't believe what you say because it doesn't even make sense. But
no, it's fiction. It sounds like fiction, but it's real.
Yeah.
I mean, I look back at it now and I said, if I had to do this all over again, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I don't even, did I plan this? No. Now, Jesse thought it was fiction. He said, there's no way that can all be true. And then that's why this has like 120 pages of bibliography and research and references. It's crazy. He did a tremendous job.
And that's why the intro is so long with so many. It's basically Jesse. I mentioned this earlier, but it's basically Jesse talking to us, the audience, and walking us through all the different angles he's been covering and with highlights of conversations he's had with you. And it paints the picture of like he was going into this like no fucking way. And then by the end, he's like,
even the
well,
part
I'll be
about
dipped in shit.
Alberto Sicilia, he couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And that's, I've been very truthful. That's, and he just, he had everything I said, he had to confirm it because, that's his business. He's an author. He has to be 100%.
Yeah.
He can't, there's no room for mistakes. And then that's part of the attractiveness of this, that, it's like a fiction, but it's real.
What do you think we, like the public in pop culture today, looking at the era that you participated in of Cartels, what do you think we get the most wrong about it? Like we clearly, just from a standpoint of thinking we get it, we don't.
Whew. Well, it's not as glamorous as they put it, it's hard work and there's a lot of money involved, but you don't keep all the money, and some of the things that are put on TV look a lot easier than they actually are. Like what I did, it took a lot of hard work, I may not have, maybe I didn't go to an office from 9 to 5, but I was thinking about this 24/7. This completely encompasses you. That, talk about being a workaholic.
Yeah.
So it's not as easy as they portray it. It takes a lot of hard work, and it's fast money, but it's not easy money.
Yeah, I see. I've been watching you today when you'll explain things. I'm similar. You'll start to draw things out with numbers and almost doodles and directions, and I can watch your mind moving and how you're like calculating everything, and I see why you were successful at what you did. You have to be constantly.
And this is nothing. I mean, sometimes I go through 4 or 5 pages. This has just been a nicer interview. Not the other ones aren't nicer, but we've been able to flow. But a lot of times I do 5, 6 pages, but I always keep notes because that's what
what you do.
Yeah, that's what I do. But I tell you, I don't know. I don't know how I did it. If I had to do it again, I don't think I could.
Well, Luis, it is a wild, wild story. I got to get you to your plane so you catch your flight on the way out of here. But this has been a really awesome conversation. I'm glad we could do it, and I'm happy you're alive. I mean, I don't know how, but
Great
Jesus
to be
Christ.
Here. And thank you very much, because it's really been a great time, great meeting you, and we've had a tremendous chat here.
Absolutely. We'll have to do it again sometime, all right?
The movie.
Right.
Next
yes,
time
the movie's coming. We got that on deck, too. We'll figure that out. But for now, everyone else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to me. Peace. Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.